You have carried a quiet pain that most people never notice. You can be doing everything right, walking in restraint, and still become the target. And that is the part that confuses you, because you are not looking for trouble. Yet trouble keeps finding you, not because you are weak, but because there is something on your life that certain spirits recognize, even when people pretend they do not. Here is what I need you to sense before anything else. Something has shifted in the unseen. The season where your silence was mistaken for permission is ending. The divine has been separating you, not to isolate you, but to mark you, so that what touches you now has to answer to heaven in a different way. You felt it. The same people who used to dismiss you are suddenly careful with their words. The ones who played with your name are restless at night. And you may not have celebrated it because you are not hungry for revenge. You just want the weight to lift, the false accusations to stop, the strange resistance to finally break. But there is a truth that steadies you. No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is the heritage of those who serve, and their righteousness is from the source. So if you have been wondering why certain attacks backfire in ways you did not orchestrate, if you have watched people move against you and then unravel without you saying a word, you are not imagining it. You are learning what it means to be defended without becoming vicious. You are not just protected, you are claimed. And if that witness in your spirit just tightened and whispered, "This is for me," let that be recognition. And if you know you are one of the chosen ones, and you are ready to stay grounded, steady, and clean in the middle of spiritual pressure, stay close to what the divine is confirming in this hour. Because some people thought they were messing with you. They did not realize they were stepping into sacred territory. Let this be a sign that you can feel that shift. The first consequence is this. The divine does not only notice, it intervenes. When someone dares to harm you, slander you, or plot against you in secret, they usually think they are dealing with a person they can pressure, intimidate, or erase. They do not realize what they are actually touching, because once a life is marked by the divine, it stops being ordinary territory. And the moment an attack is launched against someone the divine has set apart, heaven treats it as more than a disagreement. It becomes a divine matter. That is what makes it terrifying for the one who chose to come against you. They think they are fighting flesh and blood, but they are actually challenging the purpose of the Almighty. They are trying to interfere with something ordained, and sacred writings are painfully consistent about this. When the divine appoints someone, responsibility is also taken for what surrounds them. You see it in Moses. By every human measure, he should have been taken out in the beginning. Instead, he is hidden, preserved, and raised in the very system meant to destroy him. That is not luck. That is a sign. It means the divine can put a hand over a child and make danger serve the plan. And when that same Moses stands before Pharaoh later, it becomes clear that the real conflict was never Moses versus a ruler. It was the divine versus an unjust power that refused to let go. And you see it in David, a young man who did not chase a crown, yet became a threat, simply because he carried a future. He is hunted, slandered, forced into caves, treated like an enemy by people who should have recognized his heart. But what is most revealing is that David keeps refusing to become what attacked him. He does not take vengeance into his own hands, even when he has the chance. He understood something sacred. If the divine anointed you, the divine can defend you. And if the divine is defending you, you do not have to become violent to survive. This is where people misjudge you. They mistake your restraint for weakness. They see you stay quiet when you could expose them. They see you pray instead of performing. They see you forgive instead of striking back. And they assume your silence means you are losing. But that kind of silence can be the most dangerous thing for the enemy, because it often means heaven is moving. The divine will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. That line is not soft. It is not sentimental. It is a warning wrapped in mercy. It means there are moments when the divine tells the chosen, do not touch this with your own hands, because if you do, you will step out of alignment. Stay still. Stay clean. Let me handle what you cannot. And while you are being still, something is happening that people cannot see. The divine may look quiet, but is never inactive. Justice might seem delayed, but it is never absent. Sometimes, the divine lets a person keep going, just long enough for their intent to be revealed, so that when the turning comes, no one can pretend it was an accident. That is what happened with Pharaoh. He ignored warning after warning. He mocked the cries of the people. He hardened his heart like it was untouchable. But the terrifying part is this. Pharaoh did not realize that every time he struck those people, he was striking what the divine called its own. And when the divine finally stepped in, it was not a debate. It was not negotiation. It was exposure. It was consequence. It was the kind of reversal that leaves a mark on history. That is why it must be said carefully, but not softened. You cannot fight the divine and win. Not long-term, not quietly, not with charm, not with influence, not with a hidden agenda. A person can look like they are getting away with it for a season, but that season can be mercy, not approval. And mercy has a limit. The same pattern shows up in Daniel. Men who could not touch him through character tried to touch him through politics. They used laws, flattery, and manufactured pressure. They did not attack Daniel because he was doing evil. They attacked him because he was steady, because his life made them feel exposed. So they planned a trap, confident that this time they would finally make him pay for being different. But when Daniel is lowered into that den, he does not become frantic. He does not bargain his integrity away. He does not start cursing his enemies. He stays faithful, and then the divine does what only the divine can do. The threat does not move. The mouths that should have devoured him stay shut, and what was meant to be Daniel's grave becomes the divine stage. That is the part people never calculate when they come against a chosen one. They may think they are building a trap, but the divine can turn it into a testimony so sharp that it shakes everyone watching. The very thing meant to end you becomes proof that the divine was with you. So when you notice someone plotting against you, do not rush to defend yourself in the flesh like you are alone. Do not panic. Do not start swinging just to prove you can. There are battles where your reaction is the enemy's goal, because if they can pull you out of your posture, they can drag you into their realm. But if you stay aligned, if you stay honest, restrained, clean, the divine has room to move. And here is another line that carries weight. Touch not my anointed ones, do my prophets no harm. That is not a slogan for ego. That is a boundary spoken from heaven. It means there is a line people cross when they decide to mistreat what the divine has set apart. And when they cross it, something changes over their own life. Sometimes the consequence is not immediate collapse. Sometimes it is quieter, and that is what makes it even more frightening. The peace leaves them. The clarity leaves them. Relationships start cracking. Doors that used to open start closing. Their own words begin to expose them. The very alliances they built through manipulation become unstable, and they cannot explain why, because they keep thinking it is only human. But it is not only human. The divine sees what was said behind closed doors. Whispers are heard. False concern is seen. The half-truths and careful smear campaigns are watched. And even when you are crying in private, even when it feels like you are outnumbered, you are not unprotected. You are backed by heaven. And when the divine steps in, it does not always do it loudly. Sometimes it does it with timing so exact it chills the room. Sometimes it does it by exposing what was hidden without you speaking a word. Sometimes it does it by turning the whole matter around until everyone can see. This was not luck. This was the hand of the divine. The tables turn not because you became cruel, but because you stayed aligned. So yes, let them plan if they insist. Let them talk if they cannot stop. But understand what they are truly doing. They are not waking up your anger. They are waking up the attention of the living God. And once the divine stands to defend what is its own, no strategy built in darkness can remain standing. And there is a second consequence that people rarely take seriously until it is too late. What they send toward you does not just disappear into the air. It returns. The divine built spiritual law into creation, the same way law was built into nature. You can ignore it for a while. You can pretend it is not real, but you cannot remove it. When someone keeps speaking evil, planting lies, releasing jealousy, or working in darkness toward a chosen child of the divine, they are not simply being negative. They are sowing. And seeds always look small when they are planted. They only become frightening when they come up. Scripture says it with sober clarity. Do not be deceived. The divine is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will also be reaped. That is not poetry. That is warning. And when the target is someone the divine has marked, the reaping can be unusually precise, because the issue is not just personal conflict. It is covenant territory. Some people hear that and think it means you are supposed to celebrate when somebody falls. No, that is not the spirit of the chosen. The chosen do not sit around waiting to watch a downfall. But you also do not have to live terrified of what people try to place on you, because there is a reality they do not consider. What they throw cannot stay with you if it has no legal place to land. This is why certain attacks feel like they should have worked, and yet they do not. The rumor spreads, but the story does not stick. The accusation is made, but the evidence never comes. The plan seems airtight, yet a small turn of timing exposes the whole thing. And the one who started it begins to lose the very things they thought were secure: peace, credibility, relationships, favor. Not always in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it is slower, colder, more unsettling than a single collapse. Because the consequence is not only external, sometimes the first judgment is internal. Their own heart turns into a restless place. Their words start tripping over each other. They cannot sleep. They cannot settle. They cannot enjoy what they have because they keep returning to what they tried to destroy. That is what darkness does. It circles back to its source when it cannot attach to the one who is covered. You see a clear picture of this in Esther's story. One figure did not merely dislike another man. He could not tolerate what the other represented. So, he built a structure meant for humiliation and death, convinced he was crafting an ending. But the same instrument he prepared became the place of his own exposure. That is how boomerang judgment works. The trap does not only fail, it turns. And when it turns, it leaves no doubt about whose hand was involved. And you see another side of it in Joseph. His brothers did not merely injure his feelings. They tried to bury his future. They pushed him out of the family story, sold him into slavery, and went home pretending it was finished. But that betrayal became the road that carried him into the exact position where divine purpose would stand. Later, when famine hit, the very ones who tried to erase him had to face the truth. What they meant as a curse became the doorway to their survival. That is a terrifying kind of reversal, because it means a person can spend years plotting and still end up bowing to the outcome they tried to prevent. This is what people do not understand about sending darkness at someone. The divine does not only block it. Sometimes it repurposes it. What was intended to shame you is turned into structure. What was meant to break you is turned into weight. Spiritual weight that does not come from ego, but from endurance. That is why the chosen often come out of betrayal with clearer eyes, cleaner boundaries, and a deeper authority that cannot be faked. And there is a dangerous thing about the mouth. Words are not harmless. Words are seeds. When words are soaked in jealousy, hatred, and pride, They grow thorns, but not in your soil, in the soil of the one who planted them. People think they are just talking, but spiritual speech is never just talk. It carries intent. It carries agreement. It carries atmosphere. That is why you have noticed something strange. Some people speak against you, and then their own world begins to fray. Their partnerships become unstable. Their plans keep stalling. Their circle turns cold, and they do not know why, because they are still telling themselves it is only a person. But what they came against was not only a person. It was a life under covenant. You can see that principle even in the story of one who was hired to curse what had already been blessed. He found himself unable to release what his employers wanted. His mouth became a boundary. That is what protection looks like. When the divine decides to interfere, even the enemy's intention gets hijacked. Even the weapon gets turned in the hand before it can be used. And the one who thought they were controlling the narrative learns that the divine can rule over tongues, timing, and outcomes. Now, let me say something carefully, because the chosen need to hear it with maturity. This does not mean you walk around assuming everyone who disagrees with you is cursed. That is pride, and pride will poison you faster than any enemy will. But it does mean you become discerning about what people are doing when they repeatedly choose to harm, slander, and manipulate, especially when they do it without repentance, and it also means you do not join them. This is one of the biggest tests of the chosen. When people throw curses, you do not throw curses back. When they twist your name, you do not twist theirs. When they provoke you, you do not give them the reaction they are starving for. Your silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is you refusing to step into the realm they control, because if they can pull you into bitterness, they can attach what they are carrying to you. So what do you do instead? You keep your hands clean, you keep your speech clean, you stay honest, you stay steady, you do not fight in the shadows. You do not repay evil with evil. You plant prayers where they planted poison, and prayer does more than soothe you. It builds a boundary they cannot cross without consequence. And yes, there is a warning here. Not spoken from your mouth, but from divine order. Be careful who you speak against. Be cautious before you put your mouth on someone who walks with the divine. You may not see their tears. You may not understand what they have survived. You may not know the covenant that covers them, but heaven knows, and heaven keeps record. So if you have been attacked, falsely accused, betrayed by someone who wished you harm, do not let it make you frantic. Do not let it turn you into a darker version of yourself. Stay faithful, stay pure, keep walking forward, because what they sent out does not have the power to rewrite what the divine wrote over you. And the terrifying part for the one who refuses to stop, is that every seed of malice eventually demands a harvest. Not because you demanded vengeance, but because the divine is just. And justice does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it arrives like a quiet closing door that will not open again. Sometimes it arrives as sudden exposure. Sometimes it arrives as the weight of their own words, collapsing their world from the inside. What they intended for you cannot remain with you if you stay covered, but it can and often will return to the hands that released it. And the third consequence is one that does not always show up on the outside first, but it is the one that eats a person alive from the inside. Their peace is taken away. There is something sacred about the peace that surrounds a chosen one. It is not the kind of calm you get when life is convenient. It is not the kind of peace that depends on people treating you well. It is a steady, supernatural stillness that comes from being held by the divine. You can be in pressure and still have it. You can be misunderstood and still have it. You can be attacked and still have it. And that is exactly why it bothers certain people, because your peace does not only comfort you, it exposes them. The one who came did not describe peace like a mood. He described it like a gift. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. That is not motivational language. That is spiritual reality. It means the peace you carry is not something people can talk you out of if you stay aligned. And it also means that peace is not neutral. It carries authority. When you are chosen, the Holy Spirit does not merely visit your life like a passing feeling. It dwells. You carry an atmosphere you did not manufacture. And that atmosphere becomes a kind of boundary. Some people feel it the moment they get near you. They cannot explain why their jokes feel wrong around you. They cannot explain why their manipulation does not land. They cannot explain why their usual tricks stop working. It is not because you are superior. It is because light has a way of revealing what darkness wants to keep hidden. That is why people who live by control often try to disturb your peace first. They do not always come for your job, your platform, your relationships, or your reputation at the beginning. They come for your stability. They try to provoke you into reacting out of character. They push until you raise your voice, until you say something sharp, until you break your own standard. Because if they can pull you out of your posture, they can pull you into their realm. And in their realm, they feel powerful. But here is what makes it dangerous for them. When someone repeatedly aims darkness at a person carrying divine peace, they often end up forfeiting their own peace in the process. Not because you curse them, not because you wish them harm, not because you did anything mystical. It happens because there is no safe way to fight what the divine is guarding and still remain internally whole. When someone keeps crossing a spiritual boundary, something begins to unravel. And at first it is subtle, almost unnoticeable. It starts as restlessness, then it becomes agitation, then it becomes a mind that will not settle. They may look fine in public, but the private world becomes noisy. Sleep becomes shallow. They wake up at strange hours, not refreshed, not peaceful, just alert and uneasy. They replay conversations in their head like a courtroom scene. They rehearse excuses. They imagine outcomes. They feel watched. And they are, in a way, because conscience is a witness. The soul was not built to persecute what is holy and still stay calm. Sometimes it shows up as paranoia. They begin to suspect everyone because they know what they themselves are capable of. When a person is willing to twist truth, they start expecting others to twist truth about them. When someone lives by hidden motives, they start assuming everyone else is hiding something too. That is one of the most sobering consequences. The inner world becomes haunted by the very atmosphere they tried to place on you, and they do not connect it to their choices, because pride rarely allows that kind of honesty. Instead, they blame the job, they blame stress, they blame relationships, they blame bad luck. They try distractions, they try noise, they try new friends, new habits, new entertainment, new pleasures. Because they can keep the mind busy, maybe the spirit will stop speaking. But it does not stop, because peace is not just a feeling. Peace is a presence. And when a person keeps operating against that presence, they lose access to the covering that makes rest possible. One figure is the clearest picture of this, and it is frightening because he was not an outsider at first. He started with an anointing. He was chosen, he was raised, he was given authority. But jealousy corrupted him when divine favor became evident on another. He did not simply feel threatened. He began to resist what the divine was doing. He turned his attention away from obedience and toward obsession. He stopped governing and started chasing. He stopped leading and started hunting. And when that line was crossed, Scripture discusses the fallout in a way that should sober anyone who thinks spiritual rebellion is harmless. The spirit of the divine departed from him, and a harmful spirit tormented him. That verse is heavy. It shows that torment is not always random. Sometimes it is the consequence of a heart that refuses alignment. Notice what he lost before he lost the kingdom. He lost peace. His thoughts became dark, his mood unstable, his discernment twisted, his relationships strained, and he could not enjoy what he had because he was consumed with what he wanted to destroy. That is how torment works. It does not only punish, it consumes. It makes a person unable to be satisfied. They cannot rest, they cannot trust, they cannot celebrate, they cannot stop thinking about you. Even if they pretend you do not matter, their spirit keeps circling the same target. Because the darkness in them recognizes the light in you. And this plays out in everyday life more than people admit. You have seen it. Someone lies on you at work and acts like it is just business. But they cannot relax. Every time your name comes up, their body tenses. Someone spreads rumors, then becomes anxious whenever there is a meeting, because they fear the truth will surface. Someone quietly tries to isolate you from others, then becomes bitter when you still have favor. They can smile, but it is thin. They can talk, but it is forced. They can try to look unbothered, but their eyes tell the truth. They are not at rest. And it is not because the divine enjoys making people suffer. It is because peace does not coexist with persecution forever. A person cannot keep attacking what is sacred and still expect their inner world to stay stable. The conscience is not meant to be silenced. The spirit is not meant to live in conflict with the divine and still sleep well at night. Here is a simple picture from nature that mirrors this without drama. When the sky pressure drops before a storm, animals sense it before people do. Birds scatter. The air feels wrong. The atmosphere shifts. In the same way, when someone steps into spiritual conflict with what the divine protects, they may not admit it, but their inner atmosphere changes. Things start feeling off, and they cannot fix it with appearances, because it is not an appearance issue. It is an alignment issue. Now listen closely, because this is where chosen ones must stay clean. You are not called to gloat over the loss of someone else's peace. You are not called to celebrate torment. You are not called to become proud and say, "Look what happens to people who mess with me." That kind of pride would poison you. It would pull you out of the posture that keeps you protected. The chosen do not carry arrogance, they carry authority. And authority stays humble because it knows where it came from. So the goal is not to enjoy their unrest. The goal is to understand what you are seeing, so you do not become shaken by it. Because when peace leaves someone, they often become more dangerous before they become better. An unrested soul becomes reckless. A tormented mind becomes impulsive. A person who has lost pace will sometimes escalate. Not because you did anything, but because they are trying to drown out the conviction inside them. They will do more, say more, push harder, recruit others, because they believe if they can finally win, the unrest will stop. But it will not stop. Victory over you cannot replace peace with the divine. That is why you must guard your peace like treasure. Not as a personality trait, as spiritual protection. You do not guard your peace by pretending everything is fine. You guard your peace by staying aligned. You keep your hands clean. You keep your mouth clean. You do not stoop into the same darkness just because you feel provoked. You do not let bitterness become your companion. You do not let anger become your identity. You do not let revenge feel holy. And yes, there is a kind of fear here, but it is not a cheap fear. It is sober realism. It is the recognition that spiritual law is real. If a person keeps choosing to war against what the divine is doing, they open doors they may not know how to close. They lose rest. They lose clarity. They lose joy. They lose the ability to enjoy the very life they are fighting for. They can get what they wanted and still feel empty, because peace is not bought, it is given. This is also why forgiveness becomes one of the strongest weapons of the chosen. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was acceptable. Forgiveness is refusing to carry their poison inside your own body. It is releasing yourself from their energy. It is breaking the invisible rope that keeps you tied to the offense. Some people stay bound to their enemy, not because the enemy is powerful, but because they keep replaying what happened. Forgiveness cuts that loop, and something else happens when you forgive. You keep your spiritual atmosphere clean. You keep your peace intact. You keep your clarity. You keep your authority. Bitterness makes your discernment cloudy. It makes you suspicious of everyone. It makes you reactive. Forgiveness keeps you steady. And steadiness is terrifying to the enemy, because the enemy feeds on reaction. So if someone has tried to bring chaos into your life, do not surrender your peace to prove a point. Do not surrender your peace to win an argument. Do not surrender your peace to satisfy your pride. People will try to bait you into becoming what they already are. They will provoke you so they can say, "See, I told you." They will push you so they can feel justified. But when you stay calm, when you stay clean, when you refuse to be moved, it does something chilling in the spirit. It shows that you are covered, and that coverage is what they cannot imitate. They can mimic confidence. They can imitate charisma. They can copy style. They can rehearse lines. But they cannot replicate the calm that comes from divine nearness. That peace is not an accessory. It is evidence. It is proof of relationship. And the very thing they try to disturb becomes the thing that exposes them. Because the more they fight you, the more unrest they carry, and the more obvious it becomes that their war is internal. So keep your peace. Not because you are unaware, because you are protected. Not because you are passive, because you are positioned. Let your calm be your testimony. Let your restraint be your strength. Let your purity be your power. And if you have been wondering why certain people seem unable to leave you alone, why they keep circling, why they keep talking, why they keep plotting, even when it is clearly costing them, this is part of it. They are no longer at peace. They are trying to silence something inside themselves by controlling something outside themselves. But until repentance comes, the storm will not settle. That is the terrifying consequence. When someone disturbs divine peace, they disturb their own soul, and a disturbed soul does not only feel uncomfortable. It becomes unstable, it becomes restless, it becomes haunted by the very darkness it released. So, you guard what was given. You do not let their chaos become your climate. You do not let their unrest become your inner language. You keep walking with the divine, because peace belongs to the chosen. It cannot be stolen, only surrendered. And you are not called to surrender it. And there is another consequence that shows up almost like a law. The plan against you collapses, even when it looks airtight. People who move against the chosen rarely start with open hatred. Most of the time, it is calculated. They build alliances. They stack narratives. They recruit the right voices. They create proof out of whispers and half-truths. And because you have often chosen quietness over conflict, they misread your restraint. They assume your peace is weakness. They assume your integrity is naivety. They think your silence means you have no defense. But what they do not understand is that the divine does not defend the chosen the way humans defend themselves. It does not always answer with noise. Sometimes it answers by letting a plan grow just enough that its intent becomes obvious. Then it turns it inside out. That is why the collapse can feel terrifying to the one who planned it. Not because you became stronger overnight, but because something outside of them started dismantling what they built from the inside. It can look stable for a season, even impressive, but stability built on manipulation is an illusion. It is a tower with rot in the beams. There is a truth that captures this with a kind of cold clarity. The divine brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. It makes the devices of the people of no effect. That is not just spiritual language. It describes a power that actively frustrates plans that threaten what has been appointed. And when the plan is aimed at someone under covenant, the unraveling often comes with precision, like a thread being pulled until the whole fabric gives way. You have seen this pattern in your own life. even if you did not have words for it at the time. A scheme forms, and you can feel it. You can sense conversations happening without you. Doors that used to open suddenly feel complicated. People look at you differently, for no clear reason. And the temptation is to panic, to chase every rumor, to defend yourself in every room, to try to outthink what is being built in the dark. But often that frantic reaction is exactly what the enemy is hoping for. If they can make you move out of your posture, they can make you fight on their ground. And their ground is confusion, accusation, emotional exhaustion. The divine ground is different. Divine ground is truth, timing, exposure, and reversal. Pharaoh is still the clearest warning sign of what reversal looks like. He had the visible power, an army, resources, authority, and control. The chosen people had none of that, only a promise and a desperate obedience. And yet, the final scene does not honor the stronger system. It honors the stronger God. The sea opens for the chosen and closes on the oppressor. The same environment that became a pathway for deliverance became a grave for the pursuit. That is not just history. That is a spiritual signature. What is built to trap the chosen can become the very thing that swallows the one who built it. Another's pursuit carries that signature too, but in a quieter way that is almost more frightening. He spent energy, time, and authority chasing a man who was not trying to take his throne by force. He hid, wept, prayed, and kept refusing to become what he was accused of being. And time after time, the plans got close, close enough to feel unavoidable. Yet something disrupted it. A sudden distraction, a delay, an interruption, a shift in the moment that no strategist could have predicted. That is what happens when a plan is fighting prophecy. Even if it looks like it is winning in the short term, it cannot hold its shape forever. It is built on rebellion, and rebellion cannot stand long on holy ground. Eventually, he did not fall by the other's hand. He collapsed under the weight of his own inner disorder. That is the terrifying part. Sometimes the divine does not even need to strike. It simply removes the grace that was holding a person's mind and motive together, and the plan collapses under its own strain. And the enemy always overestimates itself. It thinks pressure can replace purpose. It thinks public opinion can replace divine word. It thinks control can replace covenant. It forgets that the chosen are not protected because they are flawless. They are protected because they belong to someone. Let me put it in a simple modern archetype because you have seen this too, same. Sometimes the person coming against you is like an architect of influence, someone who knows how to shape a room, how to plant a story, how to make others feel like they discovered the lie on their own. For a while it works, and it looks unstoppable. Then a single contradiction surfaces. One person asks the wrong question, one hidden motive becomes visible, and the whole structure starts folding in on itself. That is what happens when the divine breathes on a scheme. It does not only fail, it exposes the hands that built it. And even in the darkest example, when the chosen one is attacked at the highest level, the same law still holds. The religious leaders of the one who came believed they had finished the story when he was taken. They saw a public execution and assumed it meant final control. They mistook temporary permission for ultimate victory. But the divine had written a turn they could not see. What looked like defeat became the doorway to salvation. The plot did not only collapse, it was swallowed up by a greater purpose. And that is the part that should sober anyone who thinks they can destroy what the divine has ordained. Even when evil acts at its worst, it still cannot escape divine sovereignty. It can only expose itself. Now bring it back to your life, because the chosen do not live in theory. You have watched people build cases against you with confidence. You have seen smiles that did not match motives. You have felt the pressure of being misread, misrepresented, quietly targeted. And part of you has wondered, how is this allowed? Why is the divine not stopping it immediately? Sometimes the divine allows the construction so that the collapse becomes unmistakable. If the plan dies too early, people will call it coincidence. If it grows just long enough, then falls in a way no human could have orchestrated, it becomes a witness, not to your cleverness, but to divine hand. So when you feel the scheme forming, do not surrender your posture. Do not start living reactive. Do not start proving yourself to people who already decided their conclusion. That kind of striving is a trap. Your assignment is not to outthink them. Your assignment is to outlast them clean. Because this is what the divine does with the chosen. It lets truth mature. It lets motives surface. It lets the enemy's confidence inflate until the collapse teaches everyone, watching a lesson they will not forget. And that leads directly into the next consequence. One that can feel almost mysterious when you are inside it. The divine does not only overturn the attack, it uses it to lift you higher. This is one of the most unsettling truths for the enemy, and one of the most humbling truths for the chosen. The divine does not waste pain. It does not ignore betrayal. It does not overlook injustice. When a chosen one is wounded, heaven records it. And the divine has a way of turning the wound into a doorway. Not because the wound was good, not because betrayal was necessary, but because the divine is so sovereign that even what was meant to bury you can become placement. That is why the enemy keeps miscalculating. He thinks the attack will stop the plan. He does not realize the attack can accelerate it. He thinks pressure will make you shrink. He does not realize pressure can refine you until your authority becomes undeniable. He thinks humiliation will end you. He does not realize humiliation, carried with integrity, can become the very evidence the divine uses to elevate you. Joseph is the clearest picture of that reversal. Not because his story is cute, but because it is brutal. He was betrayed by his own blood, sold for silver, lied about and locked away. From the outside, it looked like his destiny had been cancelled by other people's choices. The plan against him looked complete. The damage looked permanent. But the divine was not absent in the process. The divine was positioning. And when the appointed moment arrived, everything that looked immovable moved quickly. Memory returned to the one who had forgotten. The door opened. The call came, "Ye to Joseph." And the same Joseph who had been hidden in a prison stepped into authority with such speed that it would have terrified anyone who thought they had finished him. Joseph said something later that becomes an anthem for the chosen. Not because it denies the pain, but because it exposes the truth behind it. You thought evil against me, but the divine meant it unto good. That line is not a cliché. It is a verdict. It means the enemy's intent is real, but it is not final. It means the attack was meant to destroy, but the divine can take the same event and assign it a different outcome. This is why chosen ones must be careful about despair. Despair assumes the attack defines the ending. But the divine writes endings. The enemy may write a moment. The divine writes the story. And here is the part that carries weight. And yes, it should feel a little frightening in the right way. When someone attacks a chosen one, they are often unknowingly pushing that chosen one closer to the very door the divine planned. They think they are delaying you. They may be deepening you. They think they are reducing you. They may be refining you. They think they are making you small. They may be stripping you of what could not go where the divine is taking you. So you do not respond like a victim. You respond like someone who belongs to the divine. You stay clean when they want you bitter. You stay steady when they want you frantic. You stay truthful when they want you to exaggerate. You stay quiet when they want you to perform. And as you do, something happens that the enemy hates. Your life becomes heavier with the divine, because promotion in the kingdom is not just a platform. It is weight. It is character. It is the ability to stand without needing applause. It is a spirit that can be tested and still remain pure. That is why the divine does not only elevate you away from the pain. Sometimes, elevation happens through the pain, until the pain can no longer control you. And when that elevation comes, it will not be because you fought dirty. It will not be because you manipulated your way into favor. It will not be because you won a human war. It will be because the divine turned an attack into a turning point. So if you're watching plans form against you right now, if you can feel the pressure in the unseen, do not mistake the construction phase for the conclusion. Let them build what they insist on building. Let them stack what they insist on stacking. Because every scheme against a chosen one carries an expiration date. And often at the exact moment the enemy thinks he has you cornered, the divine opens a door so clean and so undeniable that even the people who doubted you have to admit this was not human. This was the divine. When someone rises against a chosen one, they may believe they are causing damage, but they are often doing something they never intended. They are adding weight to your testimony. They push and it feels like pressure. But pressure is also what forms. They wound and it feels like loss. But loss is also what exposes what is real. And if you belong to the divine, there is a strange, frightening order in how it works. It can take what was meant to destroy you and turn it into evidence that the divine hand is on your life. That does not make the attack good. Betrayal is still betrayal. Injustice is still injustice. But it does mean your story is not at the mercy of other people's motives. They can bruise you, but they cannot rewrite what heaven wrote. They can create a moment, but they cannot control the meaning of the moment. And that is where their confidence starts to break, because they realize you are not only surviving, you are being shaped. David is one of the clearest pictures of this. And it is important to say it the right way. The pursuit was not just a chase. It was a prolonged pressure that would have collapsed a weaker heart. Caves, hunger, isolation, false accusations, people switching sides. Yet inside those caves, the divine was building a king. Those lonely places became classrooms. Those narrow escapes became training. Those unjust seasons forced David to learn restraint, discernment, and dependence on the divine instead of dependence on applause. By the time he wore a crown, he was not just a man who won. He was refined, and the terrifying part for the enemy is that the very attacks meant to end him became the process that prepared him. Job carries the same truth in a deeper, more painful way. His losses were not small, and the people around him did not all respond with mercy. Some questioned his integrity. Some added weight to his suffering with cold theology and careless words. Yet the story does not end where it gets dark. It is written that the divine blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning. That is not a promise that every chosen one will get the same timeline or the same kind of restoration, but it is a witness that the divine can bring a person through a night so severe it changes their voice and still keep their future in hand. And of course, the one who came is the clearest, most sobering example of divine elevation through suffering. He was betrayed by someone close, accused by people who knew better, humiliated publicly, and treated like a criminal. And still, the cross was not the end. It became the doorway to resurrection. That should chill anyone who thinks they can finish what the divine started. If the divine could take the darkest act of injustice and use it to fulfill the greatest act of redemption, then no one should assume their plot is final. This is why the chosen learn not to fear adversity the way others do. The pain is real, but the pain is not pointless. The attacks can injure, but they can also cleanse in strange ways. They clarify what is true. They purify motives. They strengthen your boundaries. They reveal who is genuine and who only liked you when you were convenient. And every time the enemy strikes, something else happens beneath the surface. More of your purpose is exposed. There is a truth that people do not like to hear, but chosen ones recognize it in hindsight. Without betrayal, you might have stayed too open. Without rejection, you might have stayed too available. Without certain losses, You might have stayed in places the divine never intended to keep you. That does not mean you thank the divine for abuse. It means you stop calling your season wasted when the divine was actually redirecting you. Let me say this personally, because I know how easy it is to speak this with confidence when you are not the one bleeding. There was a season where I questioned myself so deeply, I stopped trusting my own discernment. I replayed conversations over and over, trying to figure out what I did wrong, trying to make sense of why people I helped turned cold. I prayed, but it felt like silence. I stayed quiet, but it felt like losing. And I remember reaching a breaking point where I finally admitted, if you do not show me what is happening, I am going to start fighting in the flesh just to survive. And that is when clarity came. Not in thunder, but in a steady realization. My restraint was not weakness, it was protection. The divine was not absent. I was being kept clean, while what I could not see was being handled. That realization did not remove the pain overnight, but it did something more important. It kept my spirit from becoming toxic. That is, the strength the enemy cannot understand. It is not human strength. It is holy strength. It is the kind of faith that stays aligned while everything hurts. It is the kind of calm that refuses to become cruel. It is the kind of endurance that says even this will serve the divine purpose. Not because you are numb, but because you know the divine wastes nothing. And this is where the consequence becomes terrifying for the one attacking you. Because if you stay faithful, they do not only fail to destroy you, they end up contributing to the very elevation they wanted to prevent. The stones thrown to break you become steps beneath you. The words meant to curse you become wind at your back. The pressure meant to crush you becomes the thing that makes your calling undeniable. That does not happen because you are special in your own right. It happens because the divine is sovereign, and sovereignty means this. Even your enemies cannot move without accidentally stepping into a bigger design. Some people will watch the divine, bless you, and assume it is meant to humiliate them. That is not the heart of the divine, and it is not the heart you are meant to carry, but it is meant to reveal a truth that cannot be argued with. No one can stop what heaven has already begun. If you are chosen, your pain is not proof that you have been abandoned. Sometimes your pain is proof that you are being prepared. Sometimes what feels like delay is actually reinforcement. Sometimes what feels like being targeted is actually confirmation that you are carrying something real. And yes, there is a sobering image that the Spirit keeps bringing back, because it is both comfort and warning. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. That does not mean you gloat. It means the divine can vindicate you without you becoming vindictive. It means the divine can elevate you without you having to stomp on anyone. It means you can be fed and strengthened right where people expected you to starve. So when the attacks come, do not panic. Do not start making desperate moves. Do not trade your peace for a temporary win. Remember who you belong to. The pain you feel is not punishment when you are walking in obedience. It can be preparation, and every time someone tries to break a chosen one, the divine has a way of rebuilding them, stronger, wiser, and heavier with the divine. The attack does not end your story. It amplifies it. It proves you carry something worth fighting over, and it reveals a truth that never changes. When someone chooses to mess with a chosen child of the divine, they are not just picking a fight with a person, they are putting their hands on prophecy. And prophecy does not lose. Before we pray, I want you to take a slow breath and let your shoulders drop for a second. Not because the situation is small, and not because what happened to you does not matter. It matters. The divine saw it. The divine heard it. And the fact that you are still standing, still trying to keep your heart clean, still resisting the urge to fight dirty, already says something about what is on your life. Some of you have been carrying a pressure you cannot even explain to the people closest to you. You have been smiling through it, working through it, serving through it, while sensing that something is being said behind your back. Something is being arranged in secret. Something is trying to corner you. And the hardest part is that you do not want to become paranoid. You do not want to live suspicious. You do not want to turn cold. You just want peace to remain on your life. And you want the truth to stand without you having to beg for it. So right here, before we speak one word of prayer, I want you to settle this in your spirit. You are not praying because you are powerless. You are praying because you understand order, Fapan. You are stepping out of the cycle of reaction and back into alignment. You are letting the divine carry what only the divine can carry. And that is where the chosen become dangerous in the right way. Not dangerous in temperament, but dangerous in authority. Because they refuse to wrestle in the dirt when heaven is willing to fight. If this is resonating in the deepest place, not as hype, but as recognition, let that be a quiet agreement that you will stay clean, stay steady, and let the divine handle what you cannot control. May you be covered. May your mind be covered. May your home be covered. May your name be covered. May your calling be covered. Where the enemy has been trying to disturb your peace, may peace be increased until it becomes a wall. Where confusion has tried to settle, may clarity speak. Where exhaustion has been stealing strength, may fresh endurance be released. Where your heart has been tempted to harden, may it be kept soft without becoming foolish. May you be taught how to be kind and still be discerning. May you be taught how to forgive and still be wise. May you be taught how to stay quiet without shrinking. May you feel the divine presence in practical ways, through steady sleep, through restored focus, through the return of joy that is not dependent on circumstances. May every scheme formed in darkness be exposed. May contradictions be brought into the open. May deception trip over itself. May every false story lose its grip. May the alliances built on manipulation begin to fracture from the inside, not because we crave revenge, but because what is holy does not partner with lies. If there are words spoken against you, may they fall to the ground without power. If there are plans being built behind closed doors, may light enter those rooms. If there are people smiling while plotting, may their own conscience become loud until they cannot enjoy the very harm they tried to cause. May you be protected from responding in the flesh. When you are provoked, may your tongue be held. When you are tempted to retaliate, may your hands be held. When you feel surrounded, may you be reminded that you are not alone. May you learn the difference between discernment and suspicion. May you learn the difference between boundaries and bitterness. May you walk in authority without arrogance. May you carry weight without becoming cruel. And when vindication comes, may your heart stay clean so you do not become intoxicated by being right. May you stay humble enough to revere and strong enough to stand. May you not excuse what has been done, and may you not pretend it does not matter. But may you submit it to divine justice, because divine justice is higher than human emotion. May you step back from personal vengeance. May you release the need to make it right with your own hands. May you trust what only the divine can do. Correct, expose, restrain, and if possible, bring repentance. If any can still be turned, may they be confronted with holy fear, the kind that awakens the soul, not the kind that destroys it. May they feel the weight of what they touched. May they realize they were not only attacking a person, they were attacking what was set apart. May their peace depart until they come to the end of themselves. May their restlessness become a mercy that leads them to truth. And if they refuse, if they harden themselves, if they continue with pride, if they keep choosing darkness, then may their path be blocked. May doors they should not walk through be closed. May access they should not have be removed. May the damage be stopped from spreading. May the plans collapse without the chosen having to lift a finger. May the chosen watch the divine work and learn again that divine strategy is not threatened by human schemes. May the chosen one listening who feels like they are at the edge, like one more betrayal will break them, like one more accusation will change them into someone they do not want to be held steady. May what the attack reopened be healed. May trust be restored where it was violated. May courage be restored where it was drained. May sense of self be restored where manipulation tried to erase it. And if they have been questioning their calling because of the resistance, may they be reminded that resistance is not proof of absence. Sometimes it is proof that something real is on. May they be reminded that a table can be prepared in the presence of enemies, and the spirit can stay clean while it happens. May wisdom be given that does not come with paranoia. Wisdom that knows when to speak and when to stay silent, when to confront and when to let the divine handle it, when to step away and when to stand firm. May courage be given to leave spaces that poison. May strength be given to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. May new relationships be given, healthy, honest, covenant relationships that do not feed off drama, but honor peace. May favor be given where it is needed, not as a trophy, but as provision for the assignment. And may the divine protection be felt as something real. May the soul be preserved. May sleep be preserved. May the mind be preserved. May the future be preserved. May purity be preserved. May the name be preserved. May the work placed in your hands be preserved. May this whole matter be surrendered. May what is not yours be refused to be carried. May you refuse to become what attacked you. May you choose alignment over reaction. May you choose peace over panic. May you choose holiness over proving. And may you trust the divine to defend what belongs to it with timing so precise that it leaves no doubt it was the divine hand. Some of you have listened to this with a steady faith, but your spirit has been tightening the whole time because you have lived the pattern. You have watched people come for you without a reason they could explain. You felt the strange resistance that rises the moment you choose integrity. You have carried the weight of being misread, and you have wondered why your quiet life still attracts loud opposition. And the truth is, being chosen is not a trophy. It is a trust. It does not mean you are better than anyone. It means you are accountable in ways you did not ask for. It means you are learning how to stay clean when you could get even. It means you are learning how to stay steady when people try to pull you into chaos. And sometimes it means you are learning how to let the divine defend you without you becoming hard. The consequences we have talked about are not meant to feed pride or obsession. They are meant to restore spiritual clarity. When someone insists on coming against a chosen child of the divine, they are not just stirring conflict with a person. They are pressing into a boundary that heaven recognizes. And even when you do not see the response immediately, it does not mean nothing is happening. The divine is not hurried, but it is not indifferent. There are movements in the unseen that do not announce themselves until the fruit appears. So keep your heart sober. Do not become paranoid. Do not start looking at everyone as an enemy. You are not called to suspicion. You are called to discernment. You are not called to dramatize spiritual warfare. You are called to remain faithful in it. There is a difference, and if you have been tempted to handle everything with your own hands, let this be a gentle restraint. You do not have to live in reaction. You do not have to chase every rumor. You do not have to prove yourself to every room. The chosen are not sustained by public approval. They are sustained by private alignment. When you stay aligned, you stay covered. At the same time, do not minimize what you have been through. Some of you did not only face haters, you faced betrayal that cost you something. You faced campaigns that touched your name, your work, your relationships. You faced situations where telling the truth felt risky because the lie had more supporters than you did. The divine saw that, and even if you did not get an instant explanation, heaven did not miss one detail. There is a truth I want to leave with you, not as a threat to anyone, but as an anchor for you. Vengeance is mine. I will repay. That does not give you permission to hate. It gives you permission to let go. It frees your hands from revenge and keeps your spirit from becoming contaminated. It reminds you that the divine can handle what you cannot and can judge without losing righteousness. So here is what you do now. You protect your peace. You keep your speech clean. You do not let bitterness become your personality. You do not let trauma turn into cruelty. You do not take the pain and make it your religion. You lay it before the divine, and you keep walking, because the chosen do not rise by fighting dirty. They rise by staying faithful. And I want you to hear this with a calm certainty. You are not forgotten, and you are not unprotected. You are a chosen child of the divine, set apart for a purpose that cannot be erased by human hands. Some of you will notice, in the days ahead, that what used to shake you does not shake you the same way. Your reactions will change before your circumstances do. You will feel a quiet strength returning. Not loud, not performative, just steady. Like the divine is reordering things inside you while working outside you. And if you are still in the middle of it, still waiting for clarity, still carrying questions, do not rush the process. The divine does not only resolve battles, it refines hearts. Sometimes the most merciful thing done is to keep you from becoming like what attacked you. Sometimes the greatest victory is that you came out clean. Let the people who chose darkness learn what darkness costs. You do not have to be their teacher. You do not have to be their judge. Your assignment is to stay close to the divine and stay true to who you are. And when the divine moves, you will recognize the signature. It will not require you to compromise. It will not require you to lie, and it will not require you to injure your own soul to be vindicated. So breathe, release what you cannot control, pray with sincerity, walk with humility, and keep your eyes open, not in fear, but in discernment. Because the divine is still revealing what has been happening behind the scenes. Even now, it is not finished speaking.